Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this year's Independent Voices, a celebration of authors and zines. My name is Patty Valdovinos. I am a librarian in multilingual collections. We are so excited and honored to have you all here today. Yay, everyone. Yeah. So before we begin, we'd like to take this opportunity to recognize and acknowledge the first people of this land. Honor their elders, past and present, as well as their descendants who are citizens of these nations. For more information of which territory you may reside on, please check out native-land.ca. In case of emergency, please locate your nearest exit, which is behind you, and there's a few with the green signs. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for. Josef Lemoine is a Filipino-American writer whose fiction and poetry have been published in several literary journals, and his debut coming-of-age novel, The Unsaid Summer, was a runner-up for the 2002 Red Hen Press Fiction Award. Désirée Zamorano, author of the literary novel The Amado Women and the LA-based historical fiction Dispossessed, her work is often an exploration of issues of invisibility, injustice, or inequality. And so we're really excited to have them, and welcome Joseph and Désirée.
Woohoo, this is exciting. Look at this audience. I'm going to take pictures of the audience. Hope you don't mind, because I'm always excited to see that there's more people in the audience than on the panel. Whoa.
Hello, hello. Yay. Hey.
Hold on, I think mine is, flip it up. Mine has a whole cover on it. Oh, there's perfect. It's so I don't need the button. Can you hear me now? Oh, it's perfect. All right. So before we begin with our questions, I have asked both of them, if they mind reading their favorite passage from their most recent works. So, who wants to begin?
Okay, so favorite is a tough one. I'm actually going to skip the beginning. The beginning is quite dramatic, and you see a small boy taken from basically the Garden of Eden from his family into custody. So we're going to skip the beginning, and I'm going to fast forward in this young man's life into a happy moment. He's at a church function. He's now a young adult. Manuel caught a glimpse of the yellow dress as the crowd of congregants made their way towards cups of punch. The yellow dress flittered in and out of his line of vision like a hummingbird. When he headed in its direction, it set off elsewhere. Manuel sipped his tamarindo, tangy, not too sweet. And he started joining the line of men and women for the buffet. So much food: chili verde with pork and chicken, black mole, green mole, yellow mole. 5 different kinds of tamales, including sweet tamales with walnuts and Mexican chocolate, arroz con pollo, enchiladas. Someone had even made chilaquiles, black beans, pinto beans, refried beans, beans a la olla, gorditas filled with beans and cheese, or butter and beans, or cheese and meat. Across the room, pushed against a wall, Manuel spied a table laden with desserts. The man behind him quoted a sermon Manuel had often heard: "Christ is the bread of life, that we will never be hungry again. Thank you, Lord, but not right now." Manuel smiled while a group laughed. Women and a few men served the food. By the time he had rounded off his platter with Mrs. Romero's flour tortillas covering and keeping his food warm, he saw the yellow dress at the end of an aisle of tables, already surrounded by young men. His feet set off in that direction. He squeezed between tables, murmured "con permiso" multiple times, then sat next to one of the young men surrounding her. He set his plate down, introduced himself to the young man on his right, who was intent on scooping flecks of pale orange rice onto his corn tortilla. The young man grunted. He looked past the young man to get a better look at the woman in yellow. Her deep black hair sleekly waved to the right above her forehead, then dipped low and long where it curled into her jawline, all the way down and around her shoulders. She smiled attractively at the boy to her right while tearing into a piece of fried chicken. She wore pearl stud earrings, which emphasized her delicate earlobes. Was she with that man she was sitting next to? He wasn't paying much attention to her. Maybe, maybe not. He looked very young, and she looked very much like a woman. The woman of his dreams. And he didn't even know he could dream. so extravagantly.
I am so hungry right now.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, mm.
So this book is about a Filipino-American kid named Brad Pitt, and he does not look like Brad Pitt, and it's the summer of '95 when Brad Pitt is the Brad Pitt, like he's becoming the guy. And he goes on a quest with the help of his best friend, Sammy, who is also Filipino-American, and she is going to help him. She's going to help him win the heart of this girl, this white girl he's had a crush on. And I'm going to fast forward to a moment between Sammy and Bradley that takes place in Manhattan Beach. And this is Bradley, and also too, this is a letter from Bradley to Sammy, this whole book. And Bradley says, "Turns out I don't need anyone either. I can see that now. I face the black expanse of ocean and sky. I can be free just like you." I climbed over the railing. "What do you think you're doing?" she said. "You said." "Exactly what I'm supposed to." "Bradley, get back over here." I faced the dark sprawl ahead of me like an astronaut in outer space. "Bradley." Before I jumped, I believed the influence of gravity on a falling object was gradual, slowly pulling as its force increased in strength. The longer the drop, the stronger the pull would get. I had yet to understand that gravity's hold on me was constant and unyielding, and that its impact, once I let go of the railing, would be immediate. I pierced the water 20 or so feet below and found myself immersed in the kind of darkness that's humbling and enlightening, the kind of darkness that instantaneously shakes you from any delusion that the laws of nature don't apply to you, the kind of darkness that lulls you into letting go of everything. I had no sense of up and down, and whether my eyes were open or closed. When the cold of the ocean bore through my nerves and the marrow of my bones, I didn't struggle. I didn't even think to try. I accepted the control that the sea had over me and surrendered myself to its darkness. But before my brain became aware of what my body was doing, my head bobbed above the surface and I was laughing. I looked up at the pier. You weren't there. "Sammy?" I said. I shouted your name repeatedly before I heard your voice behind me. "Relax, dork, I'm right here." "Jesus, what the hell?" I splashed you and you splashed me back. We laughed. I choked on some water and you laughed harder. Then you choked on some water. I swam over. You held on to me. Your shirt had lifted and I felt your skin, impossibly warm, impossibly smooth, like the silky sand that surges between your toes as a tropical wave returns to the ocean. I never felt anything like that before. Something irreversibly changed. As we floated there, I stared off over your shoulder at the distant stippling of lights on shore, and I saw you more clearly than I ever had.
Woohoo. Thank you so much, you two. I mean, what's more alive than food and the beach, right? So can you both please introduce yourselves one more time? I know I did a quick little summary, but I know you have more to share. Tell us about your writing work and a little of the path that brought you to that work. Joseph, do you want to start?
Sure. I don't even know where to begin. All I will say is, my dad's here, and I wanted so badly to be my dad growing up, and I think there's a little bit of that in this book. And he's an artist. He's an amazing artist and graphic designer, and so I worked so hard to be that when I was a kid. But my teachers kept telling me I was a writer, and as I got older, I started to dabble in things like screenplay writing, and I started to really develop a love for film. And I went through this period of time where I was just kind of writing everything. I was doing I was an accounts receivable clerk for many years after dropping out of college. And I would write everything at night, like poetry, essays about music. I would just write and write and write until I got to a point where I wasn't where I thought I would be. And I just I gave it up. And I decided to go back to school. And now maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but now I write for I'm in story development for one of the biggest, maybe the biggest theme park company in the world. And while also sharing another side of me on the side.
Thank you.
So my story is long and varied. I will make it brief. I've always wanted to be a writer since I was a third grader. But long story, my first actual published short story didn't get published until my daughter was born. It's like, oh, daughter writing. And then fast forward many heart-broken years, and my first novel was published, The Amado Women, the year my daughter graduated from college, okay? So long and tortured. But this current book, Dispossessed, I want to tell you a little bit about the genesis of this. I teach linguistic and cultural diversity at Cal State Long Beach, and what that really means is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And every semester since 2014, I've been teaching about our underreported or our whitewashed history, such as Manzanar. I have students every semester who have never heard of the Japanese internment, so it's important for us to know our history. In a sense, not to diminish our country, but to actually make our country a better place. Some of them know about Jim Crow laws, but most of them have never heard of the Green Book, which helped African Americans navigate the country when they wanted to travel. And then we cover stuff that is personal to me. I'm Mexican American. We cover some of the terrible things that have happened to Mexican Americans, including what most people have never heard of, the mass expulsion of Mexican Americans and Mexican nationals in the 1930s. And every semester I would say to myself, where is that novel that's going to tackle that book? And in 2018, I realized I was the person to write that novel. And that's really what this book is about, the impact of the mass expulsions on one small boy as he grows into adulthood.
Thank you. Yeah, give me a round. Joseph, I wanted to do a follow-up question, and then I have one for you, Désirée. You said you dabbled in a bit of work, right, trying to figure out your style. Is there anything other than writing the novel that you still continue to write?
I mean, it's like I can't help it. Like I still will write poetry. I still will write essays that nobody will read. I'm diving into science fiction. It's weird, like this weird cycle of sometimes I experience someone kind of as suggesting that I can't do something, and then that makes me just want to do it more. So writing is just something I know I'm going to do until I die, at least, or until I can't move.
Cool. I love it. Désirée, there's actually other events happening in your book that I don't want to spoil for you all, but what were your decisions in finding how to add other historical events?
Chavez Ravine, I think a lot of people know about Chavez Ravine. I wanted to personalize the community there, and I found a beautiful book of photographs of Chavez Ravine in the 40s, and I used that as part of my research. Because I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I didn't know a lot about that community, so I wanted to cover that. One of the persons who says nice things about my book is Hector Tovar, a big deal writer. His wife is a movie producer. Her name is Virginia Espino, and she produced this movie called No Mas Bebés. And this is about the forced sterilization of Latinas in Southern California, Los Angeles. And I was so shocked by that, because this is like the 60s or the 70s, not so long ago, that I had to include that in my book.
That moment really got to me in your novel, because I learned that in college too, and I was an adult by then, so to have to wait that long to learn about such a huge aspect of our history was significant. Our next question, I know you all mentioned you have day jobs, but how do you juggle with your day job and your writing career, and how do you make time to hone your craft?
Well, I've been doing this so long, so now my kids are grown and out of the house. Will say when I was raising a family, I was trying to write every day, and it was a simple word count, like 250 words or 500 words or 1,000 words, depending on the mood or the ability. And I would get really depressed on the days. And the worst thing you can do is like, okay, I will just make it up from you. No, you will never make it up. So just let it go. And I remember telling my husband, I only did 300 words. He goes, it's better than nothing. It's like, okay, all right. So I think for me, a lot of self-affirmation in acknowledging, okay, this is good, as opposed to, I think the worst thing we can do as people is beat ourselves up. It's the worst thing. We have to be compassionate to ourselves, just like we would to a good friend. So that was the way, part of the navigating. Now I have a lot of time. I just don't know what I'm going to do, what my next project is.
I think for me, I need writing, to regulate my emotions. And I didn't realize that for a long time, but I make this very conscious effort. Every morning I have a routine. I go to the gym around 4:30, and when I come back, I just get to writing, and I write as much as I can, which is sometimes, I'll be honest, I might only write for 10 minutes, but at least I can say I wrote before going off to my job. And I write until my son and or daughter come to wake me up, and I make them breakfast, and that's the routine. And I think when you do that enough, it just, you don't have to think about it. You have to spend energy doing something. It just happens, and that's kind of the joy of the routine, which is, I don't want to do it. I did not want to go to the gym this morning. It was cold, but I did it, and I did not want to write, but I did it, and that's the truth. Sometimes it's heartbreaking to write, to sit down and write, and it's not sounding how you thought it would sound, but you keep doing it anyways, and you just have faith. It's an act of faith that it will get better.
I'm so impressed that people can get up early to write.
Right?
I can't even wake up. I mean, Danielle Steele, who was raising a bunch of kids, would get up at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning and hide in her laundry area and pound out words. So impressive. I'm like, where's my coffee? I don't know.
Do you usually write at night, Desiree?
No, I write when I wake up. When I'm alert. So I'm alert at 10. Okay, so I dedicate about 2 hours a day.
Oh, that makes sense.
On my days that I'm not teaching.
You both mentioned community, some form of community through your writing. Can you address or explain how you use community in your craft and how it helps you develop that structure, that craft in the process?
So we were chatting a little bit before, and I was telling Joseph about this organization, Women Who Submit. I'm sure there's somebody here from that, which is, yeah, okay, there we go. And which is really something I found once my novel was published. You need a community. I mean, as writers, one needs first readers to tell you whether it's okay to keep going or to give you some immediate feedback. You need, I need cheerleaders in my life, and Women Who Submit really provided that. So I just, writing, as Joseph was saying, is kind of miserable, but you want somebody to say, there, keep going.
Yeah, clap. You can clap.
I think community for me is just knowing that there's one other person out there that maybe thinks the way you do or can relate. I grew up feeling so alone, and I didn't even know why I felt alone. And I think part of it was feeling like I had to be a certain way, and the stuff I had to write about certain things to fit in or to be accepted as and thought of as cool or lovable. And so when I think of community, it really is just inviting people, and like you're saying, Desiree, being kind to yourself, including myself, to just share my voice and to share their voices, because I know when we dig down deep enough, we share so much in common. And it's very easy right now because we have these screens that are telling us something completely different. But deep down, we are so similar. We have so many of the same pains and fears, and also things that bring us joy. It's innate in us, and it's just the more we give ourselves the permission to share that side of ourselves, the more we're going to connect. I believe that, and I think it's in spaces like this.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah. And another follow-up question. So I know a few folks suffer from anxiety and all sorts of that stuff. So how do you, because this is a question I have also for myself, is how do you find those people, like those groups, right? Especially if you have that anxiety or you have that, like, what if there's no one out there for me? What motivated you to seek those folks out, community and all that?
I want to tell you just what I did, and I think this book is, in a indirect way, dealing with how to meet people. One of my favorite people in the world, his wife is here, who's also a writer. I saw, this was a guy at work, and he seemed so cool to me. And I was like, how do I get like that? And I would just think, okay, to get like that, I gotta probably like publish a novel, I gotta get big on social media, like I gotta do all these things. And then something happened where it's like, I'm just gonna tell him that I think he's really cool. And his response was, dude, I think you're cool. I'm like, what? How do you think I'm cool? So anxiety, like it's fighting through. It's just fighting through, and it's tough to fight through. But making yourself vulnerable enough to just share how you feel. And I went from feeling like I was the loneliest person in the world to just now I'm like, I have the dearest friends, and maybe that's why I'm not so afraid, is because you take that effort early on in meeting people, and it also too, like by doing that, you eliminate all the people that you're not going to get along with, and around those people, like my friends, and that anxiety just goes away. So it's the more you find those people in your life, the more time that you live without that anxiety.
Thank you. Desiree?
So I am a much older person. I remember when things were before the internet. And I honestly think it was a lot harder then to find your people. Now you do a search engine, you look for groups online, possibly meetups. How I found this group, Women Who Submit, and a little bit about that group is women submit less often than men, and men will submit something and they will hear back, this wasn't fit for us, and men will respond, oh, they don't know what they're thinking. And women will think, oh. So it's a way of submitting our group. But anyway, I was at an event and I heard this raucous laughter. It's like, oh, that sounds like that's where the party is. And it ended up being a woman that she and I are good friends now. So I really think, go find your people, whatever way that is, via Instagram, via online, via in real life meetups. I am a in real life person. I really do like that. And as to anxiety, I am so old, I'm the age of giving no fucks. I don't care. So that's just the way it is.
It's so hard to clap with this mic. Thank you so much. Between following the laughter and telling people that they're cool, I think that's it. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So can you tell us a little bit about your publishing journey with indie publishing or self-publishing?
I wrote this book. I had no idea what I was doing. I'll be honest. I had no idea what I was doing. I started in college, and then I'll be honest, it took years to get this out there. During the pandemic, I revisited it because there was a lot of, I think I joined a lot of workshops, shared at workshops, got a lot of mixed, reactions from it. People either loved it or hated it, and I didn't know who to listen to. Pandemic strikes, and I revisited it, and an old draft, like my second draft, and I got to see it for what it was in that moment. And I ended up submitting it to the Red Hen Press novel contest, and I forgot about it. And during this really, I don't know, a sad day, I got this email saying, thank you, for submitting from Red Hen Press. Thank you for submitting. There was a lot of, amazing, there's a lot of competition, but unfortunately you were not picked. And then I looked and I saw that, but the runner-up was this guy named Josef Lemoine. And it was me. I was the runner-up. But I was getting this, I'm sorry, you didn't get it. And I've never actually got an email saying, hey, by the way, congrats on getting runner-up.
Oh my goodness.
And I think that tapped into a negative side of me. That was a side of me that was like, well, okay, you don't want to, you can't even acknowledge me. Then I'm going to publish it myself. And that's what I did. And you know what? I am so grateful to them for this, because I would have let it die on my computer. I needed some sign that it was worth putting out in the world. And there were so many negative voices that had built and just said, you know what, nobody wants this, so just let it go. And it was just that sign to put it out there. And lo and behold, it's reaching people. Yeah, I don't know if that actually helped, but that's the journey. It's out there.
So the Amado Women was published 10 years ago by a small press called Cinco Puntos. And I thought, great, this is a building block of my career. I'm on to maybe a bigger publisher, maybe an agent. So up to that point, I'd had 4 agents, none of whom had sold my book. So with Amado Women, I had actually 2 other novels. People weren't interested in it. Got an agent for the second novel. And so I'm going, great, I'm on my way. And things between me and the agent just kind of collapse. So those 2 novels are gone. And when you write a novel, at least for me, it's years of your life. And as I told you, the genesis of when I wrote that book, it's like, I'm writing this book, I'm writing this novel, I'm writing it. And when it was done, I queried 80 agents who all said no. And in the midst of this, that good friend that I told you I met followed the raucous laughter. She said, you need to submit to such and such. Okay. So one night, I opened my email, and Running Wild has accepted my manuscripts. Like, oh my God, I had forgotten I'd submitted to them. I completely had. So then the thought was, do I keep looking for an agent, or do I accept somebody who honors me? I went with that, and it's in the real world now. Thank you, God. Amen.
Woohoo. Thank you, thank you. All right, so now let's get into your novels a little bit. So you both set your historical fiction books in Los Angeles. How did the history of your community send you on your path to writing historical fiction? And why were certain parts of LA important for you to include?
So I think I've kind of hinted at this, but to be a little bit more explicit, as a Mexican American and seeing such pathetic representation out in the world, I mean, people in LA, we are over 50% of the demographic. In Hollywood, we are 4% of the demographic, and women are 2%, and most of the time with their clothes off, okay? So this is always the engine behind what I'm writing. And then the stuff that I would teach, it's kind of like, well, my Cal State Long Beach students don't know the student walkouts in 1968. They really don't know what Proposition 187 was. And so it's kind of like a Chicano history primer, without being like didactic over your head with it. It's one person's life living through the history of Los Angeles and how it impacts him. And I hope it's engaging, right? It's engaging, you read it.
It is engaging.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Loved it.
So I'm from the San Gabriel Valley, and I remember telling someone maybe about 20 years ago that I was from Temple City, and the response I got was, is that where the cows are? And I think, whenever I hear about the valley, it's always like the San Fernando Valley, probably because it's closer to Hollywood. And the San Gabriel Valley, for me, is almost like, it feels like this secret place that's so big, but it's secret. Nobody seems to know about it. At least when I've talked to a lot of people, it's like at downtown, that's where LA ends. And I think for me, and particularly Temple City where I grew up, because of this like invisible nature of it, it almost became like, it felt like a metaphor for me. That, I was out in this world and I never felt truly seen growing up as a kid. And the fact that nobody knew where Temple City was or Arcadia, it felt like, oh, I guess I can't be proud of this place if no one knows where it is or what, that it's even a place. And I've since gone back to the San Gabriel Valley, and it's so beautiful, and I love it. And like, especially after going to a place like Tulsa, Oklahoma, where that's where I've never felt more invisible in my life than in a place like that. And
What were you doing there?
what's that?
Why were you there? I'm kind of curious.
I had a friend there. I was visiting him. And I just wanted to, I think I wanted to shine a light on, just the complexity, and not that they're so complex and I'm diving into like social issues of like the San Gabriel Valley or anything like that, but just that there's richness there. There are people with rich lives there.
Yeah. Did you both know you wanted your books to take place in Los Angeles from the very beginning?
I think mine was pretty clear, yeah.
I'm a beginner writer. So like, write what you know, I'm that guy. I was writing what I knew, but in the process of writing it, I think I grew to realize the beauty of the SGV.
That's great. And I was writing what I want people to know.
Yeah. LA is so vast and huge, and I think there's different components to it. And even Southern California, right, when you incorporate that. And people don't realize that it's so vast and huge, and everyone just has these stereotypes of what LA is. And I love books that break that stereotype. So, both of you write male main characters who have many fears. One of the main ones being loneliness, being alone, being left, and not finding love. Why was it important for you to explore all of this in your main characters, and what are you hoping your readers take away from their fear of loneliness?
I think I tapped into this a bit. I'm really surprised because I felt that there was a loneliness epidemic, but how much it's being talked about now. And also it's starting to reach like male-led podcasts, which is interesting, because guys, we know that like historically we haven't been the most vulnerable, but as I've mentioned before, I've felt, I've gone through bouts of feeling very lonely, and the big takeaway I think is having that courage to just say what's on your mind to someone that you want to talk to. Even, it could be someone close to you. It's amazing how, someone that you might have known for years, you get into a routine, and, you have these things that you talk about, and you think, oh, well, I can't share this with this person because this is our relationship is this certain way. But when you have that, it's amazing, like, the dark times I've gone through where I just thought, well, no one's going to want to talk to me after I admit this. And the people in my life became closer. And I feel like that's how you fight loneliness. And yeah, sorry.
Gosh, I'm fangirling all over Joseph right now. I love the way you synthesized everything. As I sat down to write this book, I knew I wanted to write about a good man. There's plenty of examples of terrible men out in the world. In fact, they get more attention than I think they deserve. And I think there is a quiet dignity of good men that tends to be overlooked. And this boy starts out from being separated from his family due to the mass deportations. So of course, he's going to have a lifelong sense of abandonment, and there's always going to be this hole in him. And I would just say, of course, he wants to find love. He wants to find somebody who will connect with him. And in this book, I did surround him by a lot of women who would nurture that goodness in him.
I think that's what I loved both of your books in that sense, is that it showed these male characters in that very vulnerable position, right? That we're about seeking that out and about finding value in that. I think it's important. So before I continue these questions, does anyone have any audience questions? I think there's a microphone in the back for those. No one? Okay.
Think about it. We
I
want
know.
your
Think about it. I'll come back. I
questions.
just
We
want to do a
like your
check-in. Do you
questions.
mind
there we go.
walking to
There we go.
the what is this? The stand? Oh, right there in the back. It's kind of dark. I'm sorry. Just because it's being recorded and they need the audio.
Okay, so I just published my own book as well.
Yay!
Yeah, but now I'm faced with the marketing end of it. Would you mind speaking a little bit to how you managed to break some of those barriers on the marketing end? Thanks.
But you self-published.
Yeah, I self-published, and I actually got help. You know, I went to a Paper Raven Books, and they helped guide me through the process. And their big focus is really on Amazon and getting seen on Amazon. And I'm gonna be honest, like, I am not great at marketing. I have a lot to learn, but it's really just sharing it any way you can and finding out what it is about your book that connects with the people you want it to connect with. I think the big thing is the one thing I would go against is like trying to pick a piece of it that you think would just get a lot of attention. But for me, it's been about the depth of connection. And when you have that deep connection with a reader, then they're more likely to share it. And so it's just finding your audience. And we have all these tools, and it's just having that courage to put it out there. I wish I had some like secret algorithm thing that I don't even know the verbiage for it, but to share with you how to get you like, you know, billions of views. But I do think
Please, I want to know.
I think it's just putting something out there in some way, telling someone about it every day.
Of course, you can get a PR person. You don't know what the results will be. One thing that I did do that you might consider is paying for an Instagram book blogging tour, and that was 12 people. We can chat later. It wasn't that expensive. Yes, they will review your book and share it on Instagram.
I'm taking notes.
Hi. Hello, I just had a quick question. I wanted to know, it's always difficult to start anything, let alone start a novel. I just wanted to know if you could tell me, I might have missed this early on, I apologize if this is a repeat, but how is it what kind of mindset and what kind of things you do to start a novel? And then another thing is, if you could just describe an idea of a novel or a story that you started but abandoned.
I have folders filled with stories I've abandoned, okay? So I think if you have to start a novel, you really have to have something, a care, a commitment, an idea, a community that you want to explore for 3 years, okay? For a short story, I mean, some people write in a month, some people write in a couple of months. Short story is like fun. It's your fling. A novel is a marriage, okay? So just think about it in those terms. And then, you know, since we're doing it for fun, if they're not fun, put it aside. If it's not fun, engaging, or creating, or nourishing for you, it's not going to be for the reader. The writing is the fun part.
Yeah, I think that's the wisdom right there. I think for me, I have to write every day. So I just, and when something hits me, I stop whatever I'm doing and I will make a note about it. And I will pull over so no one dies at my hands. That would be terrible. And just whatever inspiration comes to you, it's very easy to I think, ignore it or to think that it's going to stick with you. And I think you have to honor that moment because it very well could be fleeting. And just, yeah.
That's why I'm so excited about voice text. So I will voice to text myself, boom, because I can't figure out notes.
You don't have to stop. I know. I send random texts to myself, so that's actually pretty, yeah, and I just leave them unread because you got to keep that thought. I think there's one more question.
Yeah, Désirée and Joseph, it's great to see you on stage. Congratulations on all your successes. This question is about the writing process. What do you find most challenging, and is there a piece of advice you would give your past writing self, your baby writer self?
I think that the advice I would give my past self is the same advice I'm giving myself every day, which is just ignore that negative voice, giving you that creative voice that has all these reasons for you not to write. And my therapist actually told me to do this. Tell it to shut up. Like, thank you. I know you're trying to protect me. I don't need you right now. So shut up. And I'm going to go do this thing because I love it. It brings me joy. And it actually doesn't matter what it gets you because the process, once you get into it every day, once I get past that negative voice, I get into that zone of just joy because my ego goes away and it just opens up to all whatever maybe my ancestors experienced, whatever I've been taking in subconsciously through, my years of life, and things that I might never be able to explain. And I just allow that to take over me and write, and just write for the joy of writing.
So for me, the writing process, I really have to have an idea. I'm not one of these people who sits down and lets flow and taps into the universe. It just doesn't work that way. One of the questions that you were saying, are you a pantser or a planner? I really need to know, in my short story, how's it going to end? When I started this novel, I knew how it was going to end. I wasn't sure how I was going to get there, but I needed to know the end. One word of advice I would tell my younger self, my much younger self, is take your successes where you find them. Celebrate every accomplishment along the way. I think we have, at least at the time, we have the senses like, oh, that's not good enough. I did that, but if I did that, it means I need to be here. It's like when the Amado Women was finally published, I was so excited. It's like, and I could have enjoyed other successes along the way. It's not an either-or kind of thing.
Thank you. That is amazing. All right. So we hope you enjoyed today's. Oh wait, there's one more question. We have time. Sorry, we have time for one more question.
I'm going to slip in a bonus question with it. My question is, how do you write physically? Do you prefer a computer by hand? And on a computer, do you prefer a laptop keyboard or full-size keyboard? My follow-up question is, on those occasions when you do have to write with a pen, do you prefer cursive or block letters?
Oh, I love this. I do calligraphy. No, I had a teacher, Joy Castro, who wrote her novels by hand. I can't even imagine. Thinking of Dickens, I think all these people did it by hand and revisions and edits. I am a computer girl, a laptop, a delete. And on those occasions I do pen, I totally can't read my own writing.
Yeah, laptop. And because my brain, I think, is shooting out so much so fastly that I can't, so quickly that I can't capture it by hand. The thing that I will do by hand, though, is I do journal. And I think there's something, because the handwriting part of it does tap into a part of you where there's some kind of deep, almost spiritual connection. Probably because that's what we've been used to that as a species for far longer than this. So I try to journal daily, but that I'm not as, I haven't been as committed to.
I definitely agree. Handwriting something takes your brain in a different place. It taps a different part of your brain. Italics.
Thank you, everyone, so much for. Did you have something to add, Joseph? Okay, sorry, I saw, yes.
You know, you don't have to buy a book to come and chat with us. We're happy to chat with you at the signing table. This is a shameless plug. If you do give me your email address, I'll add you to my newsletter, and I will send you a short story that's been published, but you can't find it online. It's only in Teeny Tiny Journal.
Great. All right, so thank you everyone for your marvelous questions, and thank you for joining us in today's discussion. And I hope you are inspired to also write your own story. If you have not purchased Desiree's book, you may do so in the lobby by the library store. With the library store, they have some available, and all proceeds do go back to the library. For Joseph's book, he has limited number of copies available for those willing to provide their email addresses to sign up for his newsletter as well. And remember, all copies are available with your library card here at LAPL, so please enjoy that, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, LAP Library. What a beautiful event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Patty.